I'm going to turn our pulpit over to our guest speaker. Our guest in the pulpit today, Imam Abdurrahman Sykes, is a frequent speaker at our church. He received his Master of Religious Service from the Graduate School of Islamic and Social Sciences in Virginia. Imam Sykes is the president of the Islamic Society Leading American Muslims, ISLAM Peace Center. He also served on the leadership team of the Interfaith and Community Resource Network of Volusia County. Imam Sykes speaks at colleges, public schools, churches, synagogues, mosques, civic organizations, and corporate America, addressing misconceptions about Islam. Celebrating diversity, he strives to build bridges of peace, dialogue, and understanding whereby all men and women come together on common ground in pursuit of peace, freedom, and justice for all. He also served on the leadership team of the Interfaith and Community Resource Network of Volusia County. And I decided to read that because there's too many wonderful things in there to try to just dredge them out of my memory. But my personal view on our Imam is that he is a true holy man, and I am honored and thrilled to be your service leader today, Imam Sykes. Welcome back.
Surprise, I'm dealing with allergies, so I have my ginger tea, excuse me. What an honor to be here. Rarely do you go to a congregation that makes slide presentations specific to your presentation. So beautifully interwoven, the music and everything, and it's always been that way. As I always say, if I wasn't a Muslim, I'd be a Unitarian Universalist. So, as we begin this meaningful discussion today, I intend to avoid being confrontational or divisive. This presentation is grounded in historical facts and offers views from a place of love, justice, and a desire for coexistence. The topic we are exploring is complex and deeply emotional. You will have all kinds of emotions today. Surprise. Still, I hope we can approach it with open hearts and minds, reflecting on shared principles of humanity, justice, and collective responsibility. Let us remember that protecting life and fostering peace are universal values cherished by people across most faiths and philosophies. I hope that our time together inspires thoughtful dialogue and mutual understanding. I must say that protecting the sanctity of life is a fundamental value and objective in the religion of Islam. Peace should be the normal state of affairs between people, regardless of differences in religion, philosophy, or anything else. The Holy Quran says in chapter 17, verse 33, "Take not the life of any human being, which God has made sacred, except by way of justice and law." And that is referring to treason, okay, by the way. In chapter 5, verse 32, "We ordained for the children of Israel that if anyone slays a person, unless for murder or spreading corruption in the land," treason, "it is as if they slew the whole of humanity, 8 billion people. And if anyone saves a life, it is as if they have saved all of humanity." That is over 8 billion people, my folks. These verses remind us that protecting life is a divine mandate. and that peace and coexistence should be the natural state among humanity. The Quran calls for wisdom, justice, and collective responsibility, transcending differences of faith or nationality. We are all matrilineally and patrilineally descendants of a single couple, Adam and Eve. The Quran unambiguously mentions in chapter 4, verse 1, O humanity, reverence your guardian Lord who created you from a single soul, a single person, created of like nature, his mate, and from them twain scattered like seeds, countless men and women. Reverence Allah through whom you demand your mutual rights, and reverence the wombs that bore you, for Allah ever watches over you. Human beings must live in peace rather than in constant hostility to fulfill the purpose of their existence on earth. The Arabic word for salam, so beautifully woven into the tapestry of today's video presentation or PowerPoint presentation, the Arabic word salam, peace, originates from the same root as the word Islam. A Muslim is the doer of peace. My Jewish brothers and sisters say shalom, a Hebrew word also meaning the same thing. In chapter 3 of the Holy Quran, verse 64, say, O people of the book, come to common terms as between us and you. Who are these people of the book? And that's answered in the next verse in chapter 2, verse 62. Those who believe in the Quran and those who follow, underline, highlight, bold, those who follow the Jewish scriptures and the Christians and the Sabians, any who believe in God and the last day and work righteousness shall have their reward. So I have to ask a question. Is the Palestinian-Israeli, I don't like the word conflict, I like the word occupation, about these people, the Israelites? Are these verses referring to a nationalistic political movement of Jews? Or Jews, Christians, and Muslims? Let's look at some definitions to help us answer those questions. Judaism or Zionism? Judaism is a monotheistic religion mentioned in the Quran. Zionism is a nationalistic and political movement, highlight, underline, and bold, of Jews started by Theodor Herzl in Europe in 1897 for the establishment and development of a Jewish state in Palestine. In my blurb, I said I would highlight voices advocating for justice and coexistence. The Palestinian Anglican priest, Reverend Dr. Iman Abdurrahman's book, A Palestinian Theory of Liberation, says, from a Palestinian perspective, the creation of the state of Israel has been a settler colony enterprise by Zionism. Dr. Atik has consistently emphasized the prolonged history of Palestinian suffering and dispossession. In a letter dated January the 6th, 2024, he addressed President Joe Biden, stating the following: the appalling atrocities we are witnessing will never bring an end to this 75-year-plus conflict. Instead, they will inevitably lead to an increase in violence and loss of innocent lives. What happened on October the 7th did not start October the 7th. It occurred after 75 years of oppression, controlling a nation, taking land from its people, and injuring and killing the Palestinian Christians and Muslims. Another voice advocating for justice and coexistence is the beloved Rabbi Elhanan Beck. I recommend you watch his 1 hour, 42-minute YouTube video, Rabbi Elhanan Beck, Israel, the most dangerous place for Jews. As of 1 year ago, this video had 475,000 views. Rabbi Weiss has a video out there on YouTube called "The Existence of Zionist Israel is Antithetical to Judaism." Has had 801,000 viewers in the last year, just to give credibility to what I'm quoting today. Rabbi Beck criticizes the Zionist authorities for controlling the availability of electricity and water for Palestinians. He questions the ability of Palestinians to rule themselves under such conditions, argues that oppression breeds oppression, expresses concern about the media portraying Palestinians and Muslims as terrorists and the dangers of silencing people. He discusses the historical context of Western support for Israel, possibly stemming from guilt over not helping Jewish people during the Holocaust. He said these things, folks. He says these things in this video. He suggests that the creation of the state of Israel has not brought safety to Jewish people and calls for a peaceful dismantling of the state. He says the least secure place for Jewish people in the world today is Israel. Children in Israel are being taught about weapons, tanks, and soldiers. Can you see the difference between what a Jewish rabbi says and what a nationalistic organization called Zionism says? He continues, despite over 75 years of Muslim Palestinian oppression, Jews live safely and securely in Muslim majority countries with their institutions in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, and Turkey. For a year, I tirelessly traveled from mosque to mosque for an international organization called Beit Amal, raising money for the Gaza Strip. In 2019, my wife and I traveled to Jordan, Palestine, and Jerusalem under a U.S. passport, by the way. I prayed that I could stay in occupied territory, and God has always answered my prayers. Our tour bus failed to get us back to our hotel in Jerusalem, and we were displaced. We were homeless in Jerusalem, the city of peace. I called my new friend from AFC, Arab Fried Chicken instead of KFC, and asked, "Brother Marwan, do you know a hotelier that can provide a room for us on our last night?" He said, "Yes, come to the shop." We headed to his shop, and as he drove with us, thinking we would be staying in a hotel, he took us to his home in Ramallah. The following morning, his daughter left for school and was home in less than an hour. You see, Israel remains and retains overarching authority and control over border checkpoints and movements in and out of any other city, and in this case, Ramallah. Her schoolmate friend had been shot by the Israeli soldiers and killed. She videoed it. When we went through the checkpoint that morning, the soldier that shot her inspected our car. The body was still laying there. Immediately, I forwarded the video to my beloved friend, Reverend Bill Barnes. And upon my return, I and a delegation, including my beloved friend, Bob Horner, visited a few American politicians to share the video with them. I think there were 8 of us, right? Let's get back to the rabbi. He said, Jews live beautifully and peacefully all over the world. He asked the question, is what is going on in Israel decreasing or increasing anti-Semitism? He answered his question, as many rabbis do. I love that in them. Israel brought that term back into fashion in places where Jews were safe. That's what he said. If they want to help Jewish people, they need to dismantle the state of Israel peacefully, he said. Anyone who is against the created state of Israel is called an anti-Semite. But the founder of Zionism, Theodore Herzl, was in fact an atheist. Nothing against atheists. I love all of the atheists here today. And you have all the rights that I do. I just want to give it for context, okay? You guys know that I love all the atheists. They have spun their propaganda so well that if you say something about this nationalistic political movement, you automatically hate the followers of Judaism. My Quran does not allow me to do that. I, in fact, can marry a Jewish woman. How can I marry her and hate her at the same time? I love the people of the book. Hamas has declared many times openly, we have no problem with the Jews. We have a problem with occupiers. If the Jewish people want to live a peaceful life, they are welcome. If the English government wanted to help Jews, the wise thing to do would be to dismantle the state of Israel in a peaceful way with no bloodshed. Zionism is nationalism, and that is different from Judaism, and that's what these 2 rabbis would tell you. Rabbi Beck highlights that Judaism is a religion, not a nationality or a race, and explains the concept of being a Jew within the religion. He says, in Judaism, you cannot go away from it. You are still obligated to keep the religion which you are born a Jew. He contrasts Zionism's atheistic foundation with Judaism's trust in one God. Theodore Herzl, the father of Zionism, who died in 1860, was an atheist. His son was never circumcised, which is one of the basic covenants of Judaism. Ben-Gurion, the primary national founder and first prime minister of the state of Israel, was also an atheist. He lamented when God exiled the Jewish people from the land, they believed the land had been promised to them unconditionally. But God promised it with conditions. Keeping a high moral life was the condition. According to Jewish tradition, there are 613 laws that fulfill this high moral standard. I won't go through all of them today. Among the top 5 are "you shall not murder," Exodus 20:13, and "you shall not steal," Exodus 20:15. Even non-observant Jews practice circumcision. Our father Abraham commanded it in all 3 of the divine religions of the people of the book. Rabbi Beck points out the opposition of many Orthodox Jews to Zionism, even within Israel itself, and their refusal to participate in certain aspects of the Israeli state. There are Israelis that know this is wrong, and they won't even take social services from the Zionist government. He mentioned that some Jews are refusing social services until the state of Israel is dismantled. Rabbi Beck discusses the historical presence of Jewish communities in Muslim countries and the hospitality of Muslim populations. Everybody knows that the Jewish population was tiny 100 to 120 years ago in the Holy Land. And it was a wonderful life together, he said, with the Muslim people, because those Jews had no aspiration to take over their land. He says the Muslim people were so kind and hospitable. Unreservedly and uncontestably, the Islamic civilization throughout history has always treated Jews better than the Christians. He said this, not me. When the Jews were driven out of Spain, he said they came to the Ottoman Empire and the Jews were brought back to the Holy Land by Salahuddin Ayyubi because the Crusaders had expelled them. There is a history and tradition of flourishing Jewish communities while coexisting with Muslims. In fact, the golden ages were under the hospitality of the Muslims. This is why when you go to Morocco or Turkey, there are still Jewish quarters with Jews living there peacefully with all the rights of the Muslims. Rabbi Beck encourages Jews to make sure that they consciously point out the differences between Judaism and Zionism. He noted the absence of peace in Israel and contrasted it with the establishment of many other countries in the past 75 years. Rabbi Beck calls for a peaceful resolution, emphasizing that it was not a religious conflict, but a matter of occupation. Thus, that's why I don't like to call it conflict. It's stealing land and killing people. He encourages Jews to distinguish themselves from Zionism openly and to engage in dialogue with Muslims to dispel misunderstandings and promote peace. And now I want to move into history. The Israeli ambassador to the UN said on December the 12th, speaking to the international community and their leaders, that everything started on October the 7th. This conflict started before October the 7th. We know from history that this occupation started much earlier. Without history, October the 7th would not have occurred. Justice was prevented before even 1948. Diverse groups started like Christian Zionism, and I could come back and do a lecture on that. I could do another lecture on what they're planning to do with the land that they're stealing. And I could do another lecture on their propaganda for that land right now. Secular Jewish Zionism and religious Jewish Zionism, these groups all advocated that Palestine was a land without a people for the Jewish people without a land. Palestinians have been in that country for many generations, but they were not considered people and therefore denied existence, just like many of the minority groups in the United States of America. In the late 19th century, the political Zionist movement emerged, advocating for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Early leaders like Theodore Herzl envisioned relocating Palestinians to neighboring countries to create space for Jewish settlers. Let us look at a streamlined historical context, a brief history of the Palestinian-Israeli, let me change that, Israeli-Palestinian occupation, not conflict. Herzl's listen folks, Herzl's 1895 diary entry outlines a plan for the displacement of Palestinian population. We must expropriate gently and private property of the state assigned to us. We shall try to spirit the penniless population across the border by procuring employment for it in the transit countries while denying it employment in our country. And here's the proof for that. Check it out for yourself. The founders of political Zionism had a strategic plan as early as 1895 to move the Palestinian population out of Palestine into the neighboring countries. Disregarding the rights of Palestinians, Britain pledged support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, where Palestinians had lived on the land for generations. The British Mandate, the Balfour Declaration of 1917, facilitated land transfers to Jewish settlers, intensifying tensions. The establishment of Israel led to the expulsion of over 700,000 Palestinians from their homes and the destruction of hundreds of villages. Then came the atheist Jewish leader Ben-Gurion with his expansionist agenda. He said, "After we become a strong force as the result of the creation of the state, we shall abolish partition and expand to the whole of Palestine." In May 1948, Ben-Gurion wrote to the General Staff, "We must use terror, assassination, intimidation, land confiscation, and the cutting off of all social services to rid the Galilee of its Arab population." If you don't believe it, I've given you the proof. Check it out yourself. This is a map demonstrating the Palestinian loss of land from November of 1948, Nakba, the catastrophe, to 2011. That's what it looked like in 46. And this was how much was left in 2011. And as we speak today in 2025, help me out, brother. Maybe half of that's left. I can't find a picture of what's left. When you look at Gaza today, think of people trying to survive without social services. UN Resolution 194, adopted on December the 11th, 1948, decided early on that refugees wishing to return to their homes and live at peace with their neighbors should be permitted to do so at the earliest practical date. And those wishing not to return should be compensated for their property. To this day, not one Palestinian has been compensated for their property, and they were not allowed to return to their homes. It is a slap in the face to refer to this kind of activity to the Jewish religion. No thanks to the United States and the resolution after the revolution, the return of Palestinian refugees to their homes has been blocked, in fact. In a speech to the Summit Party on November the 15th, 1998, Ariel Sharon, then foreign minister, said, "Everyone has to move, run, and grab as many hilltops as they can to enlarge the settlement. Because everything we take now will stay ours. Everything we don't grab will go to them." You see, when you refer to a people as a them, that's hate speech. That's dehumanizing them. This ignited the uprising, in fact. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Let me show you some of my photo album. Uprising, rock throwing at tanks for Palestinians is a punishment for up to 20 years in prison. In fact, the Israeli soldiers will come and they will take a 13-year-old child, an 8-year-old child, a 9-year-old child, and take them to prison for throwing a rock at that. How is that justice? Where is the equality? And those children will never see their parents again, and they will be tortured. We have evidence of this, folks. Dismembered. One of the uprisings was caused by the creation of the Oslo Peace Accord in 1993 between Yasser Arafat, Rabin, and Bill Clinton. What Israelis are doing is building settlements, bypass roads, apartheid roads, and disrupting the Palestinian presence with apartheid walls of separation. How would you like to live with this beautiful wall? I've seen this with my own eyes. Bob has seen this with his. Naran has seen it with hers. And I'm glad that you can't see this side, because these are homes that the Palestinians are told either remove your home or we will fine you. And if we tear it down for you, we're going to charge you, and you're never going to be able to pay for it. You're never going to return to it, and you'll be in prison for the rest of your life. This is the reality, folks. After the 2008 bombing, when Palestinians were unarmed and went to protest the occupation, this is what they were met with. This is everywhere, folks, in the Gaza Strip. This is how people live. A young orphan came to me and said, "Imam Sykes, I live for the days when the drones can't fly, because I know we'll have peace that day." That's a child. Let's look at Gaza in 2014. These are kids running for their lives because of Zionism. The following picture is one of the Israeli airstrikes in Gaza. That's what it looks like. I could do another lecture on you where I point out the amount of bombs and how it is so far, exponentially far beyond any bomb ever dropped in the world today. More than 20,000 died and tens of thousands were injured here. One of these problems has to do with the Al-Aqsa Masjid, because many Israeli leaders, including Netanyahu, said construction of the third temple will not be an obstacle to peace with Palestinians. And here's the Zionist vision. The Gaza Strip has been besieged for the last 16 years, at least. 16 years under siege. The Gaza Strip has 5 major cities, all of which have been attacked by Israeli land, air, and sea forces over the years. On Saturday, October the 7th, Israel bombarded the Strip with 180 missiles, an attack which resulted in many fatalities, with a population of 1.7 million residents and the continuous exchange of airstrikes. How much of the Strip still remains? Has Hamas sought long-term peace with Israel? On many occasions, Hamas leaders extended an olive branch to Israel in the form of a 10-year truce called Hudna. Israel rejected such offers. I'm asking you for one more minute because I've overshot my time. Forgive me. In closing, this history and its ongoing implications remind us of the necessity of justice, empathy, and dialogue in the face of adversity. As people of conscience, we must strive to uphold the principles of human dignity and peace, fostering understanding and coexistence among all people. Let us leave here today inspired to engage in meaningful actions and conversations that honor our shared humanity and move us closer to a just and peaceful world. Thank you.